Well, good morning. Welcome to the Gruber Power Hour. My name is Claude Dixon.
I'm Lenny Hodges.
Hey, and I got to tell you a quick story about the guy sitting next to me. Roll back the clock about 48 hours, and this guy literally crawled to the corner office sick. And the first thing I thought about was whether or not we were going to be able to pull this thing off. But you know what? I believe in miracles, and here he is sitting here. He showed back up this morning. We were able to put it together, and his voice is going to be a little off, but he made it back in. So thank you very much, Lee.
Not a problem. Like I said, I got my Wolfman Jack voice today.
Exactly. That's cool. I remember Wolfman Jack. Okay, so here's the did you know. Go ahead and slide that up there real quick, Jesse. The light bulb. Here's what I'd like for you guys to think about for a few minutes and then chime in. I would like for you to list 3 rare earths. 3 rare earths. Do not Google. Do not cheat. Don't go to your computer. Well, you're already on your computer, but don't go to Google and do this. I just want to see what comes to your mind, and then go ahead and chime in and list it. So while you're doing that, I want to switch back to your smartphone for a minute. Remember we talked the last couple of weeks about the 12 minerals that you can find in your smartphone. So we've already discussed 5. There's 3 more. You can't see them right now. I'm going to go to a quick slide here and show you. These are the 5 that we've already talked about, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. But I want to go to the new 3. So look at that right there. You've got quartz, you've got magnesium, and you've got copper. So let's start with the copper. I think pretty much everybody knows that copper is in the wiring in your cell phone. Okay? The magnesium is used for the casing. That is the middle mineral that you see there. And then the quartz is used for the microprocessor. So here's the thing with the quartz though. They're using I call it fake quartz because it's not naturally made. They're using lab generated quartz in your cell phone. They're not using the piece that I have on the desk. Jesse, if you could go to the image on the desk real quick. I actually have these 3 minerals here on the front of the desk. You got magnesium, you got copper over here, and then this is natural quartz. So this was mine. This piece happens to be from Brazil in South America, so it's a really cool looking piece. But they're not using natural quartz. They're manufacturing it in a lab. It's synthetic, so it's fake quartz. That's what I call it. But all the other minerals that they're using in the phone, the other 11, they're all natural. So I thought that's pretty cool. The other thing that's really interesting too, if you were here to pick these up, this is the larger mineral. So in your mind, you probably think, hey, you know what? That's probably heavier than the other 2. The truth of it is that copper over there is 3 times heavier because it's much denser, just a heavier mineral. You know, it's ore related where this isn't. This is a very, very light, the magnesium. So for those of you who are watching internally, if you would like to come see these minerals, pick them up, look at them. I'll have them in the corner office on a desk. You can check them out. All right, so let's go back, Lenny. Let's go back to the question real quick, the rare earths. So we have one so far from Justin, cobalt. Unfortunately, that's not a rare earth, but nice guess. And there are no more. I think people were probably too embarrassed to even comment about this, but that's okay. We're going to go into what they actually are. The did you know? So does anybody know what this is? Have you ever seen this before? Have you ever seen this before? They probably don't teach it nowadays, do they?
I don't think they do, but I know when I went through school, I was like, no, I'm good. Couldn't memorize half of it.
Yeah. So this is the periodic table of the elements. I'm becoming more and more in love with this thing as I learn more about minerals. Okay, this thing is incredible if you really dive into it and look at it. Okay, we just got one in here. YouTube TT Sil. I'm not sure who that is, but Scandium, correct. That is one. By the way, there are 17 rare earths. 17. Of the 17, 16 of them are natural. In other words, they're God-made. There is one that is not. It's actually made in a lab. Another way to look at that, too, is there are 16 that are mined. Okay? And one of the reasons that they say they're rare earths, it's kind of a misnomer. They're actually really abundant. If you look at the Earth's crust, they're actually really abundant. The issue is the inability to mine them, which makes them rare. There's only certain pockets in the world where you actually can mine these minerals safely. So that's one of the reasons why they're rare earths. So if you look at this periodic table of the elements and you go down and I can't point to it. Let me see if I can go all the way to the bottom. You see the green row. So the row above it in blue, are all the rare earths. If you count those, there's 15, and then there's a couple. I can't use my cursor to go up to them, but that's okay. There's a couple in the light blue that are also considered rare earths. I think that's really cool. The other thing about this table, in 1980, there were only 89 elements. Today, there's 118. So if you go back and look at the periodic table of the elements back in 1980, there would only be 89. We now have 118.
That sounds about right, because I think I remember when I was going through high school, it was like 92 at the time, something like that. And I was like, since then, I've never paid attention to it, so I didn't even know it had grown that much.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's going to grow even more as we do more exploration.
It is. And speaking of exploration, great lead in. I think most people know, I was going to say everybody, but that would have been wrong. Most people know that President Trump on March 20th signed an executive order to do more mining in America for rare earths. So there's like 3 sites that he outlined: Mountain Mine in California, Halleck Creek in Wyoming, and believe it or not, right here in good old Arizona, the La Paz project in Arizona is one of the 3 sites that he identified that they want to go in and excavate and start mining. Because if you look at who is producing, who has the reserves, and who is mining, China basically has a monopoly over pretty much everybody when it comes to these minerals. In fact, the United States represents only 1.9% of the production. Okay? Think about how many things we get, okay, that we use, electronics, you name it, everything has these minerals basically in it. And here we are, almost 100% reliant on China. That makes no sense, right? When we have it right under our feet. So
it's in our own backyard. Why not?
Exactly. So great job, President Trump, on that one. Okay, we have some comments up here. That looks like a galaxy far, far away. Hey, by the way, put that backdrop back up there, Jesse. Okay. For those of you who don't know, Lenny thinks this is an eye, but this is actually the Ring Nebula. This actually exists out in space, and it's our very, very first target. We're kind of into space this year in terms of performance. So this target right here we're trying to get to before the end of Q1. The target means gross profit. I'll leave it at that. It's a goal that we set. So some other... let's see, look at this here from Tech Titan Troll. Great mineral display on the desk. Are you selling any of those? Man, I could take the rest of the podcast and talk to you guys about what my plans are, my personal plans, along with my partner who lives in California. What we're going to do once we're out of this game, we're already working on it. And the answer to that question is yes. Yes, sir, with an exclamation mark behind it. Got another one here from Justin Brownlow. He Googled that. Okay.
I think they're talking about the Scandium.
Yeah, the Scandium, exactly. And then one from Grant in NorCal, lithium. No, that's not a rare earth, but that's used in batteries. You know that. And I actually showed that actual mineral. It's called kunzite though, but it's basically lithium. That was one of the first minerals I showed 2 weeks ago. All right. So with that, we'll end the whole rare earth discussion. Like I said, I could go on for an hour with this thing. I'm totally into it. So we're going to transition back. We got a lot of requests. Well, not a lot. We had like 4 or 5 requests after the show last week to recap the last 2 weeks, since we were talking about our depot refurbishment process. So we're going to go ahead and do that. It's going to be very top line, but I think at the end of it, you will definitely have the gist of what it is we do. We wanted to break it into two areas. We wanted to break it into the UPS, which is an uninterruptible power system, into the unenergized state, okay, along with the battery cabinet. We're going to talk about that piece first, and then the second piece we'll talk about is what we do when the UPS is energized. Okay, two pieces, unenergized, energized. So Lenny, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? I'll go ahead and put the slide up. So we got pre-inspection. There we go.
Well, like we discussed in 2 weeks ago, as far as the individual modules that are actually in one of these UPS frames, you have your two intelligence modules, your static switch, power module, your network card, an I/O control panel, and then your system power supply cards. These are the main units that we're looking at when we get in a frame. We'll pull them out, we'll clean them. The MEM, the intelligence module, the power module is sent to our module repair section for overhaul, refurbishment, cleaning, replacement parts, whatever we need to do to make it a standard refurbish like we do for everything. And then like the static switch, the I/O control panel and stuff like that, the network card I handle on the side, dealing with the frame itself. It's not actually part of module repair, but if we needed to, we can. It's just a matter of handling it on that side because we can split it up and go from there.
Yeah.
The Intel modules and the power modules, we usually use the same Intel modules. We refurbish them. And the power modules, we'll pull out, we'll send the module repair for refurbishment, but we'll already pull from our good stock that we've already refurbished. That way we know we have known good units going into the frame before we even power it up.
Okay. So, I'm going to ask for some questions just to help the audience out a little bit. So when we say refurbishment, probably the first thing you think about is that we're replacing everything. That simply isn't true. So when you look at these components up here, there are some in the cleaning process and inspection process visual, we open them up. So you'll see the one off to the left, that's a 10KF power module. We actually open up that power module, we blow it out. Okay, we inspect it for burns, broken pieces, broken parts, that kind of thing, kind of like the obvious things that you would see from a Century standpoint, okay? The same thing with the component in the middle. That's a static switch. We open that up, we look at it to make sure everything's intact.
Right.
I don't believe we're opening up the MEM though, right?
We do. We open up the MEM, make sure, because the MEM has parts that can blow. It has fuses. If the fuse blown, obviously it's not going to work, but it could have burner components too. Plus, we do cleaning.
Yeah.
We still blow it out. We still wipe the casing down. We tag it, with any warranty stickers or anything that we need necessary for like that. So we still do open the Intel modules. Network card gets the same treatment, clean, programmed. And then control panel, clean, power supply cards get opened up, they get blown out because, those power the control panel. So obviously we need to open that up, make sure there's no burn components, nothing's broken, everything's still good also. Yeah,
because the objective is we want to get the components to a like new state.
Right.
Okay, so these are the internal components. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay. Go ahead, Lenny.
So this is what you'll see when we empty out the frame. The control panel's still in there. The Intel modules are still in there. This is just taking out the heavier stuff so we can maneuver, and it makes it safer to taking off the panels and wiring and everything. So this is what we're looking at when we do an inspection of the frame. We'll look at all the connectors in the back. We'll look at the railings. We'll look at the engaged switches. And the door, the frame, make sure there's nothing bent, no connectors are broken, nothing's burnt. Dirt is a big thing, corrosion is a big thing. So dirt, corrosion, cosmetics, broken connectors, missing hardware are our biggest things that we're looking for on this.
Yeah.
That's the 5 things we kind of look for in the beginning, and then obviously as we power it up, if there's problems, then we go back to the troubleshooting portion.
Yeah. One of the first things before it even gets to the technician that can be pretty obvious is the casters. If the UPS, this particular one simply doesn't roll, you already know you got a problem, because now you got to go get a forklift, you got to pick it up, you got to bring it in the depot. Now, the time requirement, let's talk about that. Everything we just talked about, looking at these components, opening them up, what type of time are we talking about? And I know it's variable based off how dirty it is, but assume, okay, it's relatively dirty.
Relatively dirty, it'll take 1 to 2 hours.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we're not just blowing it down, because even if you blow it, there's still residual metal fragments, there's still shavings, there's residual dirt and everything. So not only are we blowing it down, but we're actually going in and hand wiping all the rails down, hand wiping the side panels, and cosmetically we'll paint and sand and paint as necessary, or remove dents and everything. But we wipe everything down because blowing doesn't always clean it. It just gets the big pieces out and the loose pieces, but we still go in and hand wipe everything down. Like you said, it's not a complete frame off restoration, but it's as close as new as we can get.
Okay. All right. So we hope you got that down. Again, that was top line, but that's the UPS battery cabinet in the unenergized state. So are there any questions up there, Jesse? Because I know the screen is, before we go on to energized.
And of course, on the other side is a battery cabinet. Same thing. We're looking at the connectors. We're wiping down. If you see those black plastic pieces, those are guides for the battery module to slide in. So if one's broken, if it's a screw missing, we'll replace the or the guide and replace the screw hardware, because that's part of refurbishment. You know, a broken piece is a broken piece. You replace it. You know, if it's missing a screw, you put everything back. So we do the same thing with the battery cabinet too.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. That's fully populated right there with the batteries and the power modules. Everything's intact. Getting ready to go into the energized state now. And why do we want to test the unit fully populated?
Well, for example, even with an 80K unit, you can make it a 20, a 30, or 40, or whatever, however many modules you need. But the reason why we test every slot fully populated like this is because if a customer only has 4 modules and one of their slots goes out, we want to make sure all the subsequent slots work. So if they have to move it to a different slot, they're not going to lose the use of that power module. So we will actually test it like this, make sure everything's work. And then once that's working and we're good to go, then we'll actually set it up to what the customer has ordered. And then we go from there for final QC reports.
Okay. So theoretically, you have the battery cabinet on the right, you have the power module cabinet basically on the left. Okay, the batteries, my understanding, are pretty much interchangeable. That means if I took them all out and I put them in a different way, they would still work fine.
They would still work fine.
Power modules are a little bit different.
They are, and battery modules can be like that too. There's times where you'll move a battery, you'll put a battery in one slot, it says on and okay, and you move to another slot, and it says not installed. You move to another slot, it says on and okay. They're finicky also. They can be picky how they're put in, but power modules are definitely like that. And one thing that we do in Depot is when we have an order like this for an LX, a PX, any type of system that is modular like this, we will label the modules for which slot it goes into. And then that's verified with our QC report. So when it gets to the field and install, the modules are labeled so they know exactly which slot they fit in and then which slot they actually work
that's
in.
Smart,
also,
because we weren't doing that a while back. I mean, that's something you implemented.
Yeah, something I implemented. So when it gets on site, they can be like, oh, this one goes in this slot, because there's times where a module will not go into a slot and you don't want to break it, obviously, because if you break the frame, the connector, then you got a down unit, you know, or if you break the power module, you got to get a replacement module. So by us labeling it, we've already taken the guesswork out of which one fits and which one works in which slot.
Right. We got a question there. Is it typical to run without full use of slots? I would say, you know what, most of the time it is typical. We do send out fully populated UPSs. You know, the reason why you have a modular UPS is because most of the time the customer doesn't need all the slots. So they're kind of like getting the frame for growth. You know, if they add more devices later on down the line, then they're going to buy another power module to fill that slot. But yes, to answer your question, I would say most of the modular UPSs we send out, whether an LX or a PX, they're typically not fully populated. Would you agree with that? You're doing the work.
I actually, surprisingly, the last 4 LXs I've done have not been fully populated.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So it does happen.
All right. So now we're going to go to the energized state. So the first, you probably already saw the slide. I slipped and showed it early. The load bank. Walk us through that, Lenny. What is the purpose of the load bank?
So this, what we use this unit on is we use it for our three-phase systems. We hook it up to the output when you turn on your UPS, and then you turn on the load, or you're providing power, output power to your equipment. This simulates your equipment that you're hooking up to it. So what this does is we can do 240 volt systems. We can do 480 volt systems also. And then based on however many power modules you got on it, we can actually select a load percentage from this to run to the unit to simulate what you got in the field.
Right.
So this allows us to, instead of always going and it's a one-stop shop for all types of equipment that's going to hook up to an UPS. So this just provides one-stop shop for the load.
Okay.
As far as the use of it.
And remember, we just heard Lenny's technical mind come out again. He said UPS. Okay. I said what that was in the beginning. Does anybody remember what that acronym stands for? Okay. Uninterruptible power system or source. Okay, that's what that stands for. We use a lot of acronyms here, so if we slip and use one and you don't know what it means, just go ahead and fire a note, and then we'll define it for you. If we even know. That's the other part of it. We use them so much, we don't even ask, well, what is it? Okay?
Right.
Yeah, but a couple key things there. The other thing, too, is the controlled environment. The load bank allows us to, adjust the load, put different percentages of load on the system in a controlled environment versus doing it in the field. Now, do they do it in the field? Sure. This is a service that our account managers can sell. A load banking. If a customer wants to, to test their UPS, we certainly can provide a load bank and do that for them. So now we're going to, so that's load banking. Now we're going to go ahead and transition to something else that's very, very important. In the last session, we showed you the meter, but we did not show you the connectors, so we wanted to go ahead and do that this time. Talking about on the left, you see the meter in the middle of that photo. That's a $7,000 device, and you see 4 clips. There should be 5. I want our technical people that are watching, which clip is missing? Go ahead and let us know which one is missing. And then at the bottom, the clamps that go over the conductors. Why don't you go ahead and walk us through power quality?
Okay, so the top clamps basically monitor your voltage coming into your system or out of your system, and then the amp clamps at the bottom are monitoring your current. So the alligator clips on the top, we're actually putting those on the terminals of the power, the output power from the unit, or the input power to the load bank, because it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. So, but we're putting it on the terminal lugs for the power, and then the bottom ones we're actually clamping around the cables or the conductors to get what the amperage is.
So simplify that a little bit more. So the alligator clips at the top.
Yes, the alligator clips are top, and the amp clamps are at the bottom.
Right, just break it down in layman's terms. The alligator clips on the top. You said they're connected to terminals. What did the terminals represent in the field?
The term is the how the power is connected.
Okay, but
there's
device?
lugs, there's bolts, there's different ways that the powers are. It's like taking a vacuum at your house. Have your 3 prongs. That's what you're connecting to, is those 3 prongs, but in a different type of mechanical setup.
Okay, and then the clamps are going over the conductors.
So that would be over like your electrical cable,
right,
to get the amperage.
And each one, both of these scenarios, the clips and the clamps are on the output of the UPS, not on the input, because we're not really concerned about the source power. I mean, you can look at the source power coming in, the input of the UPS, but we're really concerned about the power, the cleanliness of the power going to the devices, okay, the critical load, the servers, that type of thing, okay, that's what we're measuring here. So, all right, look at that, Justin, he guessed it. Is he right or wrong?
No, not this time.
Okay, so we're missing, what are we missing, the neutral?
We're missing the neutral, actually. So you have 3 power clips, the red, the blue, and the black. The ground is green, and neutral is usually white.
Okay, all right. All right, so we got another one up there. How much load is typically put on a unit when being tested?
It varies. It varies on what your setup is. If I've got a 20K frame, I've only got 2 power modules, it's as far as what we use the load bank, as far as the settings of that, the combination of those, it varies. But usually I'll run it at about 50 to 60% load. to kind of simulate what's in the field. I mean, obviously they can go higher, but I usually do 50 to 60%, and I typically do it 3 to 4 hours.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned the time. So we talked about the load bank. We were talking about the power quality now. So we're running these two tests simultaneously. They're not sequential. They're not one after another. So all this is being run at the same time for about, on average, how much time?
3 to 4 hours.
About 3 to 4 hours, okay? If everything is right, everything's set up, we're good. So the next thing we're going to transition to is the thermal scan of the unit. So we didn't show you last week the actual thermal camera, which is off to the left. I think I might have had it on the desk, but we didn't focus on it. So this is the E8 right here, and that's the screen that you see. The camera is actually on the back side, and you see two images. The one on the right is just the regular picture of the LX, the UPS itself, and then you see the scan that is taking place. So what are the benefits of this, Eleni?
Benefits, it shows you have hot spots in your equipment if something is about to fail, basically. Yeah. So you see on the left side is the power modules themselves within range, but you see those bright or dark orange spots, that's showing battery thermal runaway, where the batteries are overheating. They're going to start to swell. If they start to swell, they can start to leak. And of course, that causes you to go down because now you have no battery backup.
Yeah, you can actually see that.
And they're overcharging at this point.
Right. And you can see the one in the middle is not as hot. The one at the top and the one at the bottom looks like they're in thermal runaway.
Yeah. Totally. The one at the very top, that's actually your circuit tray.
Okay.
Your bypass. It's like a bypass.
So there's only 4 of them in there?
There's only 4 batteries on the right side.
Okay.
The top 2, the very top 2 is like remember the control panel on the PX that we showed? This is similar to that, but this is actually a power tray. It has your maintenance bypass switch and it has your main power on.
Okay.
And then underneath that are your 2 MEMS. Now, MEMS don't have cooling fans like other things, but obviously you can see they get warm because everything else around it's getting warm, so it absorbs that heat. But then the last 4 at the bottom are the batteries. So that middle one, where it's darker, that's the one that's really getting hot.
Okay. Yeah, so to do this thermal scan on this unit, we're talking 10 minutes, probably not even that. Okay, so you're thinking, man, that's quick. And again, this is simultaneously as well as the other 2 things that we mentioned. But the way you want to really use this thing is in the field, on your system, on all of your ancillary equipment, the generator, the cooling equipment. So this thing could be hours, depending on what the scope of work is, how many pieces of equipment you have, how many buildings you have at your facility. And again, the last 3 things that we've talked about, we do sell them individually. So you can sell a thermography, survey. You can sell a power quality analysis. You can sell a load banking, procedure. You can sell all 3 of those items. Just wanted to point that out. So we got Justin again. Do the ground or the output terminal block? Talking about where the clips go. I guess he's asking us a question there.
Yeah, with those alligator clips that were on there, as far as one goes to the ground wire, 3 go to the power, and then 1 goes to neutral, and that's verifying your voltage. Okay. That's coming out of the unit.
Okay, let's hit the next one too. This is Justin again, do you ever overload the UPS on purpose to see if the unit will go to static bypass?
Depends on what the configuration is. If it's like a 20, 30K, I will not do it because you have I wouldn't say a tendency, but some of these modules are a little older that we're refurbishing, so we do want to tax them, but we also don't want to blow something up and then we lose inventory at that point and have to start over from square one with another piece.
Yeah,
so I do tax it. Sometimes I'll go over if it's got a full capability. But if it's say it's like a 8K LX or, with a redundant, it's not really necessary to do something like that. But the PX, sometimes we'll see if it'll go into or see what we can do.
Yeah, because the other thing we don't know is what the customer is actually requiring. I know we get the configuration, but what are they actually going to be supporting? And how much load does that actually represent? We really don't get that information. We just get the configuration, and that's what you build to.
Right.
Okay.
That's why I usually run about 60 to 70%. You know, I like running at 50 to 60. It kind of gives me a good gauge of you've got enough to push it, but you've also gone above to what somebody might actually be using.
I hear you. Okay. Okay, so we're going to switch gears now to cosmetics. Cosmetics is the next step.
This is just this is actually a 40K unit, but this is just showing that all four sides, all the hardware's there, everything's been, if we have to, remove dents, scratches, repaint it, touch up paint as necessary. Now we're not stripping it down to bare metal to enter spray, you know, we're actually just touching up as necessary, and then if we have to pull a full coat over the panel, we will do that. And of course, this is like cosmetics isn't just about scratches, dents, and paint. It's also about corrosion. You know, because if you have any rust that's in a scratch or something, you want to get rid of that corrosion also. And like I said, we're trying to get as close to as new as possible. You know, refurbishment means refurbishing. You know, it doesn't mean a complete restoration, but we're trying our best to make it as new as possible. And you know, some of these units are a little older, so it's going to take a little more TLC with them.
Right, right. So we got a question. How would you be able to understand the full amount of load a UPS can take if you don't load it to the max? Well, first of all, the truth of it is you never want to load your UPS to the max because it has tolerances. I think the number that they set is like 75, if I'm not mistaken. You roll it to the max, the UPS is going to default. Because it has alarms, and it will go out of tolerance. So you never want to run your UPS at maximum, you know, like that.
Right, and it varies, but it actually does vary though. Based on how old the equipment is, because some power modules may be able to handle a little bit load more than some other ones, just based on sheer capabilities of what components are in there.
Right, and you know the runtime of the component. There's a lot of X factors.
There are
when you're doing this. You know, you don't know how long that power module actually ran.
Yeah, you don't know how many hours, but your environmental conditions play a lot into that. You know, a cooler facility, you may actually put a little bit more load on it because it's not as hot. You know, a hotter facility, something that's not a clean room or something like that. You know, environmental factors also play into that also.
Okay. All right. The last thing here, there's two more things. So we have the QC report now. Let me hit this just a little bit, and then Lenny can take over. So at the end of the day, when Lenny has determined that, okay, the UPS is ready basically to go to shipping, he formulates his report. And this is what the account manager would receive. And depends on whether or not he would forward that to his customer. That's based off whether or not they want to do that. But this is what each account manager would receive. And it's basically a synopsis of everything that took place with that unit.
Right. I mean, we take this directly from the machine itself. You know, what the Intel modules are actually reading from the power modules, what they're reading from the batteries, what they're reading from the input power, what it's reading for the output power. We take a direct snapshot from the unit itself, so there's no guesswork or you know, transcribing wrong information or making a wrong calculation. That's why we actually have our own in-house network, so I can actually monitor it via the internet and pull directly from the machine.
And this is not coming from the display. This is coming from your laptop.
This is coming from my laptop, so if anybody does remote networking and they want to monitor their system, this is what you're going to see.
Okay.
And so this is a service that we now offer too that we weren't before, is a direct snapshot and everything as far as, I guess, it's not. I guess it's not a service. It's not. I guess that's the wrong word. It's not a service. It's just an extra thing we're providing now to the customer to give them more information at the tip of their fingers.
Right, and the photographs too are very important.
Right, and we also take photographs of all the units too. So if there's any questions of, you know, hey, this didn't look like this when it left. What happened? You know, is it just shipping or something like that?
Yeah, because we get that. I mean, it doesn't happen every single time we do a shipment, but occasionally, you know, a customer will say, hey, well, let me see the pictures. And again, everything with this test report or QC report, Lenny has implemented since he's been here, since he's been in the job, you know, 3 years. He's really like advanced things. So now we're attaching pictures, that kind of things. And it's really a great aid to the account manager versus having to scramble, try to find things, ask questions. He has this report at his fingertips. with everything he needs. Okay, so a couple other questions up here before we close. Is there a max? Is there a minimum? We're back on the load testing. That's from Hunnam, 1983.
I don't know. I guess the minimum I've actually seen on a unit is 5%, and the maximum I've run a unit at, I've run it to where it does trip it, but I think the max after that, I'll push it to maybe, like I said, I'd like to keep it not above 70, 75 based on manufacturer's recommendation, but I'll push it to 80 if I need to. You know, if account manager's like, hey, I really want to see this work, you know, based on what the customer wants, you know, we can do that.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing that the depot provides is the warranty packet. And that contains a few key things. You have all the contact information, who you call, the 1-800 number, who does what is in there. There's a one-line diagram in there for the electrician. There's just information on who you call basically and who the contacts resources are in case there's a problem. The other thing too is if you sell a service maintenance agreement with this, we do this with most of the units. Most of the units go out with a service maintenance agreement. It gives you who those contacts are as well, in case there's a problem. Anything else you want to mention? Okay. Hey, really appreciate all the questions that we got. We really hope that, the last 3 weeks, we hope that you were able to get something out of this and you're a little bit better, you're a little bit more knowledgeable and better educated. And feel free, to email either one of us. You can find us easy, HOD@Gruber.com, DIX@Gruber.com. Shoot us a note and we'll answer those questions as well. So with that, we will see you all next week.
And remember, laces out.